Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Dr. Anthony Mattis here, and I'd like to talk with you about basically what I've learned with being you with ASB. If you're watching this for the first time or if you've never heard of ASB, it stands for Anthony's Synthesis of Being. And it was something that Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, and Dr. Dane Here, the co creator of Access Consciousness, um, called the energy work that I do, which actually comes from the ESB universe, which is created by my good friend, Dr. Dane Here. And that stands for Energetic Synthesis of Being. And you get to learn all this fun, yummy stuff in the Symphony of Possibilities class, also known as SOP. Okay, so now that I kind of gave you all that information, what have I learned? So I've been an Access Consciousness facilitator for 9 years now, while at the time that I'm making this video. But I started doing ASB, something that showed up in my life about 7 years ago to date. And it was like when I first worked on Gary and Dane, and it was just something that, they found that I had a capacity with. And so I've had the privilege to work on both of their bodies and beings for the last 7 years and, travel all over the world and work on thousands of people's bodies and beings from all different cultures and races and religions and sexual orientations, you name it. And what a gift. And can I say, in terms of like what I learned, when you're actually in the space of this energy, there is no sexuality. One of the things that hit me was the second month that I was doing sessions. I was working on a man and a woman. And about halfway through the session, I was like, wait a minute. It was like their bodies, yeah, the bodies was like part of the being, but it wasn't like so significant, so to speak. And so halfway through this session, I'm like, wait a minute, who's the guy and who's the girl? It didn't matter. It didn't matter because I was working with the beings that just happened to have a body that was a female body, or happened to have a body that was a male body. But none of that really mattered for this with the session. And I was like, whoa. And so that was like, gosh, I've had so many ahas. I don't even know where to begin. But that was like something that was so cool for me, because what that created for me in my world is that when I work on a session, I do have to remind myself, oh, I'm working on a woman right now, or I'm working on a man, right? And I'm a man, right? And I'm a man with my own different sexual orientations and desires and all of that, right? And so what actually keeps people from receiving everything they can from a session is that they actually allow sort of like their gender and their sexual orientation and desires or whatever to sort of like get in the way of who they can receive from. So it's like I almost forget because I'm just working on the being. So I have to remind myself, like from my point of view, it's like my being's working on their being. But I'm like, oh no, wait. I have to remember that, especially for the new folks that are out there that are just receiving this energy work for the first time. And a lot of people, when they come to Access Consciousness classes, they've gone through a lot of abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, in all different ways and shapes and forms and throughout their lives and whatever. And so you have to sort of keep that in mind when you work with someone. So even though you may be, as a practitioner, let's say, in a space where you're like, yeah, I'm a being and they're a being, but they may not necessarily know that. So, but you as a practitioner can still be the space of that, because as a practitioner, especially whatever energy work that you do, when you are functioning from infinite space, the person or the people that you're working on have infinite possibilities to choose from. And so very little will I actually do verbal facilitation in these types of sessions, but sometimes it's required because you can see where there's a block in regards to the person not letting you in, so to speak. And you know, sometimes most of the session, I'm not even touching their body, right? I might be 10, 20, 25 feet away from the table. And it's amazing how, like, as hungry as you all are, or some people are, to have more show up in their lives, it's like when that more starts to rise up, it's amazing. You see them put this lid on it or a cap. They're like, no, wait, I can't become too powerful or too potent, or I can't go out of control because it may look funny or weird, or I can't receive this much amazing energy because he's a man and he's straight, or I'm gay, or or I'm not gay, I'm straight, or I'm a guy, or whatever. All the crazy shit that goes on in our head. Because when you have all that stuff going on in our head, how much can you actually receive? So, as a practitioner, as a facilitator, you sort of invite people to sort of, it's okay. Go, like, what would it take for you to go beyond the fact that I'm even a guy working on you? Could you, at least for this session, perceive me as just an infinite being? And if I didn't have a body, what could you actually receive? If you didn't have a body, what could you receive? But we have bodies, right? So it's like, how can we use our bodies to our advantage? How can we actually have the joy of embodiment? We have bodies. They're meant to enjoy. They're not meant to judge. They're not meant to suffer with or for. And so that's one of the greatest gifts that the tools of access consciousness provide, is to get you to actually start to receive you more, have more communion with your body, start recognizing how much awareness that your body's actually giving you that you're not acknowledging, and how much sometimes maybe your body's the key where you may be the lock. So that was like a really fun experience when I was working on the guy and the gal, and I was like, after a while, I didn't know who the guy was, I didn't know who the girl was. It was like they were just beings, and it was beautiful, and what they were able to receive and what I received as a facilitator was just magical. It was such a gift for me because I realized that none of that really matters. It only matters when we make it matter. It's like, we say in Access that your point of view creates your reality. Your points of view create your reality. And if you make your points of view significant, then it creates all this form and structure in your universe that you can't go beyond. And it feels so real and true. It feels so real and true. And another thing that's been so fun, and in particularly when I've worked on the guys, Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here, is they function from a completely different space because they've been using the tools. Gary's been, he created the work. So, but he's been using the tools for 30 years. And I guess Dane's been using it for 20 years now. And it's amazing because I get to watch them use the tools on a regular basis. It's not like they reached the top of the mountain and then they stopped using the tools. No, they actually use the basic tools like access consciousness, the bars. And it's nothing basic about it, but that's actually where you start. And so, but watching them using the tools regularly is such a gift. And so, but anyway, but the space that they occupy is so grand and glorious and magical. I don't know what else to say about it. It's kind of like watching a science fiction movie, with people with all these like supernatural powers. You're like, yeah, what would it take for me to have some of that, But when I would work on them, and when I would be in the question of space, and like what energy, space, and consciousness can my body and I be to facilitate whatever it is that they're asking for. And I do this with people too, like yourself, and people I've met all over the world. And it's like when you ask the question, it's like the universe guides you. It just guides you because every time you ask a question, quantum entanglements of the universe rearranges itself to show you. And that's an old knowing, an old saying that, ask and ye shall receive. No one really taught you how to really ask a question. Most people function from, I want this, I want that, I want this. But when you actually ask a question in a certain way, like what energy space, and consciousness and choice and magic, miracles, mysteries, and possibilities can my body and I, the being, be to facilitate whatever it is that they're actually asking for with total ease. And so, I'm just doing my thing. And then all of a sudden the universe goes boom, boom, boom. And then I watch their bodies respond and their being. Do I know how? Nope. Do I know what's actually happening? Nope. All I know is that something is happening. Something is happening. And I don't know if it's the right word is this may sound cliche-ish. I don't know, but it just may sound hokey for those of you who might be hearing this sort of thing for the first time ever. But it is, you are functioning in a reality beyond this reality, beyond like the tangible, beyond the five senses. And it's fine. If you think it's hokey, it's cool. I get it. Trust me, I totally get it. But when you receive it, and when you deliver it or facilitate it, it's not hokey anymore. It becomes a reality, it becomes your reality. I'll never forget when I actually first started learning this work. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I actually picked my patients from my chiropractic office who never done energy work. And I actually did groups of 3. And I worked on 3 people at the same time. And when they were done, they all experienced something. They all were like, whoa. And it was adorable because they used their own words because they didn't have sort of like the vernacular for energy work. They didn't have like the vocabulary. They didn't have, they never taken metaphysical seminars and all that. I mean, the most outside of the box that any of them ever did was maybe like a yoga class or a massage. But for those of you who are probably listening to this, we've done all wild, crazy stuff, right? In the name of consciousness or oneness and whatever. But they weren't like those kinds of people, okay? Which was fine. But that's why I picked them, because I needed to prove to myself that I can do this stuff, especially after the guys were like, hey, you have this capacity. I'm like, no, I don't, do I? So I practiced with these folks and it was amazing. Like when they got up, they're like, holy shit, where did you take me? And I was like, awesome. So what have I learned? Well, one thing that I've learned is this reality isn't the only thing that there is. What I've learned is that you don't have to be at the effect of your past anymore. Why? Because a new space of possibilities can exist, can open up. What I've learned is that when you have a greater sense of communion with your body and you stop judging your body and start being with your body, you actually have more joy, more fun, more happiness in your life. What I've learned is that people who have had abuse and sort of like checked out of their body actually check back in, literally, and they have this greater sense of communion and possibility for the first time in their life. And also, what I've learned is that even if I feel like a piece of shit about myself that day, as long as I'm being in the question, as long as I'm being energy, space, and consciousness, and how do you be energy, space, and consciousness? You ask, what energy, space, and consciousness can I be for this person? It's not about doing anything, it's about being you, showing up as you, because your unique energies, whatever they are, whatever makes up your being, they're yours. Nobody else has that. And one of the gifts to all of this is that, and all the tools of access is that they're there to unlock your unique capacities that no one else has. And that is a contribution to the people that you work with or work on. And another thing that I've learned is that there's no certain way that proves that the person's receiving. Some people laugh hysterically. Some people fall asleep and they're snoring. Some people might be there like this, but you could tell they're like thinking like crazy and they're not receiving at all. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, for some of you, if you can actually see and perceive that you're a crap receiver and that you make your thoughts and feelings, emotions, and your constant thinking all the time more real and valuable and true, and it keeps you from receiving anything, it keeps you from actually being aware of anything. Sorry for hitting this table all the time. It's like, oh, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, when the person's receiving, there's no way of receiving. And sometimes when a person's in their head, and you can see that as the person facilitating, and you just say, hey, if you're thinking about a bunch of things, that is a form of barriers. Would you mind just asking your barriers to come down? And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Thank you for that. And then they're like, and they kind of just like settle in to the process. And sometimes if you could just crack open that door just a little tiny bit, you've created a lot for them. You've created a lot. You've created hope for some people. Because where there's hope, there's possibilities. Where there's possibilities, there's hope. There's hope. So, gosh, I can go on and on and on about the things that I've learned, but like when you're being you, working with energy, it's always a learning lesson, so to speak. Because this is one of the few modalities that exists out there where the person who's giving is receiving as well, just as much, just as much. I don't know what it is about this work. I've done a lot of different healing modalities, but it was like giving, giving. This is sort of like a dance. And I'm like, whoa. And it's nothing short of just being miraculous. So, anyway, I hope that helps somewhat. And truly, what else is possible? What can you actually receive that you haven't been willing to receive? And if you were willing to actually receive, it would change your whole entire reality. God knows, what is it, September 18th or 16th, 2021? God knows we all desperately need a new reality beyond this reality. And you all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, take care for now and hope to see you someday in person.